stars were quiet. A dead moon floated in darkness, cold and empty. Beside it, something drifted. A wrecked alien warship. Its metal torn, its lights flickering, its engine silent. Most passed by it. No one wanted to go near it. But the human rescue ship Solus 9 had orders to investigate. Commander Alina Ward stood on the deck, watching the broken ship through the glass. Her brown eyes focused, her jaw tight. She had seen many wrecks before, but something about this one felt different. The crew scanned for life. Nothing showed. No signals. No movement. Just silence. They marked it as dead, but as the ship began to turn away, a sound came through. Faint, a soft cry. Not mechanical, not radio static. A cry. Alina froze. She turned to her crew. Did anyone hear that? They looked confused. Some shook their heads, probably echo from the wreck. Nothing alive. There, said the co-pilot. But Alina felt something in her gut. She put on her helmet. I'm going in, she said. Ma'am, that's not protocol. The tech officer replied. I'll be quick. She launched in a small pod, alone. The wreck loomed closer. Jagged metal reached out like claws. Her pod connected. She entered the alien ship. It was dark. The lights flickered red. Sparks flew from broken wires. The air smelled of smoke and melted steel. Her boots echoed down the halls. Alina moved slowly, flashlight in hand. She passed empty rooms, burnt bodies, signs of battle. But then she heard it again. The cry, soft, weak, coming from deep inside. She followed the sound. Her heart beat faster. At the end of a narrow hallway, she found a small chamber. The door was barely open. She pushed it aside. Inside was a cradle, shattered. Smoke filled the air, and there, among the debris, lay a small creature, shaking, crying, barely breathing. It had blue-gray skin, large glowing eyes, and tiny hands. Its body was thin, wounded. It was a baby, an alien child, from a race known across the stars. Feared, hated, warriors of fire and steel. But this one was just a baby. Alina dropped to her knees. She reached out slowly. The child looked up, weak, scared. It's okay, she whispered. She wrapped it in a thermal blanket. The heat sensor showed it was close to death. She held the child close. You're safe now, she whispered again. She named her Kira. Alina returned to the ship. The crew panicked. They begged her to leave the creature. This could start a war, they warned. But she refused. She didn't see a threat. She saw a child, a soul. She broke protocol, hid the baby from command, took her back to Earth there, in a quiet place among the forests of Oregon. Alina raised her in secret. Kira grew fast, smarter than human children, stronger, but she was kind, gentle, curious. She would stare at the stars at night, asking questions Alina had no answers for. Alina gave her a pendant, a small metal star. For when I'm not with you, she told her. They were happy, for a time. But one night, everything changed. The house was empty. No sign of struggle, no message. Kira was gone. Alina searched for years, filed secret reports, contacted old friends. No one could find her. It was like she had vanished into space. Alina never gave up. But time moved on. She got older, slower, but her heart never stopped hoping then. One morning, 20 years later, the sky changed. The clouds above Washington split open. A fleet arrived. Massive ships, black and gold, alien symbols lit the sky. The world panicked. The president called a meeting of all world leaders. Defense systems activated, but no attack came. The ships hovered in silence. Then a single message was sent, across every channel, every frequency. It said only one thing: bring me Alina Ward, alive. No explanation, no reason. The world asked, who is this? The answer came quickly, a name, spoken with power. Empress Kira, of 1,000 worlds. The girl Elena saved. The child she raised. Now, a ruler of empires. And she wanted one person, her mother. The moment her name echoed across Earth, Elena Ward felt her heart stop. Empress Kira, her Kira, the little girl who used to fall asleep in her arms, the one who used to laugh at butterflies and ask if the stars could sing. Now, she commanded 1,000 worlds. Now, she stood at the edge of Earth's skies, with a voice strong enough to shake planets. Elena sat in silence. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper. Grief, wonder, hope. What had happened in those 20 years? The world leaders debated. Military leaders shouted. Satellites tracked every ship. But none of that mattered to Elena. She was thinking of the day Kira disappeared. It had been raining. Elena remembered every detail. The door was open. The pendant was gone. So was Kira. She searched every forest, every hidden path, for weeks, then months. The trail turned cold. There were no footprints, no signals, nothing. But Kira hadn't vanished. She had been taken far away, in a hidden world of metal and storms. Kira opened her eyes for the first time in a cold glass room. Alien doctors stood over her. They spoke in a tongue she had once known but could no longer understand. They injected her with memory suppressants, forced her into training, burned the human words out of her mind. Or so they thought. They called her Zarka, a lost daughter of the high bloodline, the only survivor of the royal vessel that crashed long ago. They said she had been stolen by humans, polluted, tainted. She was told to hate them, but Kira never forgot the warmth, not completely, even when they wiped her memories. Something remained, a face in the dark, a soft voice, a silver pendant. You're safe now. Those words stayed, like an ember that refused to die. As she grew, so did her strength. She trained harder than anyone, fought in brutal arenas, defeated champions twice her size. She was faster, smarter, fearless. The Empire watched her rise. The generals called her a weapon, but the people, they called her hope. Kira began to ask questions. Why had their world fallen into chaos? Why was every choice built on revenge? The old council feared her. They whispered that she was too human. But they couldn't stop her. When the last emperor died in a palace explosion, no one stepped forward until she did. Her voice echoed across the star systems. I am Kira, of the royal bloodline. I claim the throne, not with hatred, but with strength. I will not rule by war. I will rule by truth. And the Empire followed her. Under her rule, the galaxy began to change. Borders opened, trade returned, war slowed, but peace wasn't enough for her. She wanted something more, something missing in her private chamber. Surrounded by riches and power, she stared at a single object, a small, metal pendant, old, scratched, still warm from memory she had. Sent her best seekers across the stars to find its origin. And finally, they did. Elena Ward. Her name had survived in old records, buried deep in forbidden databases. When Kira read it, something inside her cracked open. The ember burst into flame. She remembered. The forest, the voice, the blanket, the word, Mother. The galaxy watched as her fleet moved toward Earth. They thought it was an invasion, but it wasn't. It was a search. A cry from a daughter across light years. A call that said only one thing. I remember you. Back on Earth. Elena stood before the United Nations. She looked small among the towering screens and armed soldiers. They asked her what to do. She smiled sadly. I'm not a general, she said. I'm not a threat. I'm her mother. And without waiting for permission, she stepped forward. The skies above Earth were no longer blue. They burned gold. The alien fleet hung over every major city. Silent, immense. Not a single ship fired. Not a single soldier landed. But the message was clear. They could, and yet, they waited in her capital. Ship, Above the Earth's atmosphere, Empress Kira stood before a wide glass window. Her eyes watched the planet below. So familiar, so distant. She hadn't set foot there since she was a child. Behind her, her High Commander spoke. Empress, we are receiving urgent transmissions from Earth governments. They demand to know your purpose. They ask for peace talks. Kira didn't blink. Her voice was calm, but heavy. Send them the message again, word for word. The message echoed across every satellite, every TV, every phone, every screen on Earth. Bring me Elena Ward, alive. The world froze. Who was Elena Ward? Why did the Empress of 1,000 Worlds want a retired human pilot? The news networks lit up. The internet exploded with rumors. Was she a spy? A traitor? A secret queen? But in a quiet cabin, far from the cities, Elena Ward knew the truth. She sat on her porch, eyes fixed on the glowing sky. Her hand touched the necklace she wore, a matching pendant, just like the one she gave Kira 20 years ago. A knock came at the door. A military escort stood outside. Elena Ward, the officer asked. She nodded. You're requested at the Global Command Center. She didn't argue. She didn't ask questions. She simply stood up, took a breath, and whispered, She remembers me. The command center was chaos. Generals shouted across holograms. Politicians argued about defense systems in space. Protocols. Elena walked through the noise like a ghost. Everyone stared. The president himself turned to her. Miss Ward, you're the only one she's asking for. She won't speak to us. She's ignored every offer, every threat. What does she want? Elena looked up at the sky on the screen. She wants the truth. Within hours, a single ship was prepared. A diplomatic shuttle, unarmed, painted white. A sign of peace. Elena stood at the ramp, dressed in a simple flight suit, the same one she wore on the day she found Kira in the wreckage. Reporters begged for answers. The world watched, but she said nothing, because this wasn't about the world. This was about her daughter. The shuttle rose into the air, higher, faster, breaking through the clouds, rising toward the waiting fleet. Inside the command ship, Kira watched the shuttle approach. Her heart beat faster, though no one could see it. She had fought beasts, tamed planets, stared down death 100 times. But now, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Fear, not of war, but of being forgotten. She stood in her grand hall, dressed in black and silver armor. Her crown gleamed. Her cape flowed like fire, but her eyes were searching the door, waiting. The shuttle landed. The guards opened the chamber, and there, at the entrance, stood Elena. Older, slower, but still strong. Still her. The room fell silent. Neither of them spoke. For a moment, time didn't move. Then Elena smiled, the same way she did all those years ago. She stepped forward and said, softly, You're safe now. Kira's breath caught. The words pierced through everything. Her crown, her armor, her walls. The memories hit her like a storm. The forest, the warm blanket, the tiny pendant in her hand, the woman who once sang to her under the stars. Her voice broke as she whispered, Mother. Tears filled her eyes. And then, for the first time in 2 decades, Kira stepped down from her throne, not as an empress, but as a daughter. The throne room was silent. High above Earth, in the heart of the Empire's flagship, 2 souls stood facing each other. Kira, Empress of 1,000 Worlds, daughter of war. Elena, the human who raised her, mother of peace. No one dared move. The guards stood still. The generals held their breath. But for Kira, the room had vanished. All she could see was Elena, older, wiser, but still the same woman who once wrapped her in a blanket. The same voice that had whispered bedtime stories while the stars blinked. Outside the cabin window, You're safe now. Those words echoed inside her. For a long time, Kira said nothing. Her voice was locked behind the walls she had built over 2 decades. Then she stepped closer. Her crown sparkled under the golden lights, but her hands trembled. She spoke, not as an empress, but as a child. "Do you remember me?" Alina smiled, soft and steady. "I never forgot you. Not for one day." The guards turned their eyes away. Some felt shame, others, AW. Kira looked down at the small pendant in her hand, the same one Alina had given her long ago. The metal was scratched, but it still shined. She held it out. "I kept this, even when they told me to throw it away. Even when they said, you were the enemy." Alina reached out and gently closed Kira's fingers over it. "You kept your heart. That's all that matters." Later, they sat together in Kira's private quarters. No advisors, no guards, just a mother and her daughter. The galaxy outside the window drifted in silence. Kira poured tea, just like she had seen humans do in her childhood. Her hands were steady now. "I had dreams, you know," she said, "of trees, of rain, of laughter. I didn't know where they came from, but they felt warm." Alina listened quietly. "They tried to erase you," Kira continued. "They said I was broken, that I was born in darkness, and I should stay in it." She looked up, "But you showed me light, and it never left." Alina placed her hand over Kira's. "You were never broken. You were lost. That's all." The next day, a council meeting was held aboard the flagship. Alien generals stood in rows, their eyes cold, their voices sharp. "She is a human, Empress. Why should she be allowed in this chamber?" Kira stood tall. Her voice was clear. "She is not just a human. She is the reason I still have a soul." The room murmured. One general stepped forward. "You risk everything for her. The people watch. They will question your blood, your loyalty." Kira's voice turned to steel. "My loyalty is to the future, not to fear, not to revenge. And if they must question my blood, let them." She pointed at Alina. "This woman saved me when no one else would. She raised me with love. When your worlds burned, she taught me how to build." The generals fell. Silent. Kira stepped down from her throne and took Alina's hand. "I am Empress because of her." That evening, Kira walked alone with Alina through the ship's garden deck, a place of rare beauty, filled with glowing flowers and trees from distant moons. Kira stopped under a silver-leafed tree. "Sometimes I wonder," she said, "what my life would have been like if I had stayed with you, if no one had taken me." Alina looked at her with gentle eyes. "You would have still been strong, still been kind, but maybe not alone." Kira turned away, staring into the stars. "I don't want to be alone anymore." Alina placed her hand on Kira's shoulder. Then, "Don't be." In that moment, Kira made a decision, not just for herself, but for the galaxy. No more shadows, no more lies. She would unite what had been broken, and at her side would stand the woman who had taught her how to love, how to hope, and how to lead without fear. Not just a mother, but the heart of the Empress. The stars outside the ship kept moving, but inside Kira's heart, everything stood still. She sat alone in the Hall of Flame, the place where past rulers had spoken their vows, where wars had been declared, where thrones had changed hands. Tonight, it was silent. No guards, no council, just the Empress, and the weight of everything she carried. She stared at the sword laid across her lap. A ceremonial blade passed from ruler to ruler. It was heavy, not just with metal, but with expectation, with history, with blood. Behind her, the doors opened. Quiet footsteps echoed through the marble floor. It was Alina. Kira didn't turn. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "I go where I'm needed," Alina replied. She walked forward and sat beside Kira, without a word. Kira didn't look at her. Her voice was cold now, but underneath it, something trembled. "They want me to send you back to Earth. The council says you're clouding my judgment. Alina nodded. And are they right? Kira's jaw tightened. They think compassion is weakness. That because I love you, I won't be able to lead. That peace is not the Empire's way. Alina waited. Then she spoke gently. Do you believe that? Kira stood up. The sword clanged against the floor. I don't know what to believe anymore. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. I was raised to fight, taught to kill before I could read. They made me into something sharp, something useful. She touched the glass, but I remember the forest, the fireflies, your voice at night. She turned to Alina. And sometimes I wonder if I'm just pretending to be strong, pretending to be enough, pretending to be good. Alina's eyes filled with quiet sorrow. She stood and crossed the room. She reached for Kira's face, and then, softly, she said, You're not pretending, you're choosing. Kira's breath caught. You chose love over power, peace over pride. That's not weakness, that's courage. But outside the hall, danger was building. The High Commander paced his war room, face hard, voice low. She's lost focus, he said. The human clouds her mind. Other generals agreed. The Empress is no longer acting in the Empire's interest. She's showing weakness. The High Commander slammed his fist against the table. Then it's time we remind her who holds the true power. That night, Kira stood before the Grand Council. Alien eyes stared down at her. You refuse to declare war on Earth. One of them said, You refuse to erase the humans who once kept you prisoner. They didn't keep me prisoner, Kira said calmly. They gave me life. Murmurs spread across the chamber. The High Commander rose. You're abandoning tradition. You're risking the Empire's strength. Kira turned to him. I'm building something better. His voice sharpened. Then prepare to lose everything. He pressed a hidden device beneath his sleeve. At that moment, across the fleet, ships shifted. Formation, power redirected. Systems changed hands. The command network began to fall under rebel control. A silent coup. Back in Kira's chambers, Alina looked out the window. The stars were moving. Not naturally, not peacefully. The fleet was preparing for war. She ran to the door, but it was sealed, locked from the outside. She was trapped, and Kira was walking straight into danger. In the council chamber, Kira's screen lit up. Emergency alerts. System overrides. She turned to the generals. You're doing this now. The High Commander smiled. You were a child once. Now you act like one again. But the Empire belongs to its warriors. He raised his hand. Seize her. Kira drew the ceremonial sword. It was not just a symbol. Tonight, it was her voice. She swung it once, twice. Guards fell back, but she was outnumbered. Utmatche still. She stood her ground. Meanwhile, Alina worked quickly. She opened the wall panel. Found the emergency bypass. Years of tech work helped her now. She broke through. The door opened. She ran, through glowing halls, past confused officers, until she reached the council chamber. There, she saw Kira fighting, wounded, surrounded without fear. Alina picked up a fallen guard staff and stepped into the chaos. Together, they fought, back to back, one with a blade of fire, the other with a heart full of fury. Kira looked at her, amazed. You shouldn't be here. Alina smiled. I go where I'm needed. They pushed through the attackers, made it to the command. No. Kira entered her override code, seized control of the fleet back. The High Commander was arrested. The coup failed. The Empire watched in silence. Then, the Empress raised her sword to the sky, not to command, but to declare something new. The rebellion had failed, but not everyone gave up. The High Commander had allies in the shadows, hidden forces, old loyalists. They would not watch their vision of the Empire crumble without one last strike. Their plan was brutal, direct, cut off. The Empress's heart, Alina Ward, never saw it coming. She was walking alone through the garden deck, the place where she and Kira often spoke, under the glowing trees. For a moment, the air was still. Then everything changed. Gas hissed through the vents. Her vision blurred. Her knees buckled. She reached for the emergency beacon, but it was too late. Rough hands grabbed her. Voices in a language she didn't recognize. And then, darkness. When Kira found her chambers empty, a strange coldness filled her. No message, no alerts, only silence. She called every officer, every guard, but no one knew where Alina had gone. Then, a signal came through, a single image. Alina bound, bruised, held in a black cell. Deep inside, a war cruiser near the outer rings. A voice followed. You wanted to lead with love. Now feel what love costs. Kira didn't speak. Not to her advisors, not to the council. She walked to the armory, took off her crown, put on battle armor, black, sleek, built for war. The Empress had returned, but this time, it wasn't for power. It was for one person. Her ship tore through space. Fast, focused, she left behind her. Royal Fleet took only a stealth crew loyal to her cause. She didn't need an army. She needed time. Inside the enemy war cruiser, Alina hung in the cold. She had not cried, not begged, but her body ached. Her mind was slipping. Still, she whispered to herself, "She come. They don't know her like I do." The rebels tried to break her spirit. "You raised a monster," they hissed. "She chose you over the Empire. She fall with you." But Alina smiled weakly. "You think she rules with weakness. But it's her love that makes her unstoppable." Then, the ship shook. Sirens blared. Lights went red. The guards looked at each other in panic. Kira had arrived, and she brought fire. She broke through the hull with focused strikes, disabled defense towers, sliced through doors like they were paper. She moved like a storm. Every step was faster, every breath sharper. She didn't speak. She didn't pause. She was coming for her. Alina heard the chaos, footsteps, shouts, explosions. Then, silence. The cell door opened, and there she was. Kira, her armor scorched, her eyes burning. She dropped to her knees beside Alina, untied her bonds, held her like a child. "You came," Alina whispered. "Double quotes always," Kira said, but it wasn't over. The High Commander stood at the exit, sword in hand, his face twisted with hate. "You threw away an empire. For her." Kira stood. "No, I rebuilt it because of her," he charged. Their blades met, sparks flew. Alina watched, unable to move. It was a brutal fight, but Kira was not fighting for power. She was fighting for love, and that made her stronger at last. She struck him down. The ship groaned. Systems failing. She picked up Alina, carried her through fire and debris, got her onto the shuttle. They launched, just as the cruiser exploded behind them. Safe inside, Alina leaned her head on Kira's shoulder. "You saved me." Kira held her close. "No, you saved me first." Back at the capital, the Empire watched their Empress return, carrying a woman in her arms. She had risked everything. Not for war, not for glory, but for love. And the people cheered, because for the first time in centuries, their ruler had a heart. The throne room was quiet again, but this time, the silence was different. It was not cold, not heavy. It was peaceful. Empress Kira stood at the center, wearing no crown, no cape, no blade, just simple robes of deep silver. Her scars were visible, her strength still clear, but her eyes held something more, clarity. The galaxy had watched her rise, watched her rebel, watched her bleed. Now, they watched her rule, not through fear, not through force, but with purpose. In every world, across her empire, people gathered to listen. Her voice echoed through satellites, through crystal radios, through ancient towers. "I was born in a time of war," she said, "shaped by fire, trained to conquer. But I was also raised by love. A love that saved me when I was lost. A love that reminded me what it means to feel, to choose, to care. Her words reached soldiers, merchants, farmers, children, across alien cities and desert moons. They listened. She continued, "This empire is not just mine. It belongs to all of us. And it will no longer be ruled by hate. It will be ruled by hope." Behind her, Alina stood silently. She had refused royal titles. She didn't want power. She only stayed to make sure Kira remembered who she was. But the people had already given her a name. The heart of the Empress. Kira opened new paths to Earth. Ambassadors arrived. Treaties were signed. For the first time in history, humanity joined the Galactic Council, not as servants, not as threats, but as equals in Earth's skies. Alien ships no longer hovered in fear. They arrived with gifts, with knowledge, with peace. Children from both worlds studied together. New cities rose. New friendships began. And in the stars, Kira watched it all. She traveled often, never with an army, just with a small crew. And Alina, they visited Earth, often, sometimes. Kira would return to the forest, the one where she first learned to walk, where fireflies danced at night, where a woman once whispered, "You're safe now." On one quiet evening, Kira stood by a lake. Alina sat beside her, wrapped in a soft blanket. The stars above them shined like rivers of light. Kira spoke softly, "You gave me everything, even when I had nothing to give back." Alina smiled. "You gave me a daughter. That was more than enough." They sat in silence, watching the sky. A shooting star passed overhead. Kira looked up and whispered to herself, "I was born in war, raised in love, and now I rule with both." Across 1,000 worlds, the name Kira became more than legend. It became a promise that even in the darkest times, one act of kindness, one moment of compassion, one mother's choice to protect a child, could change the stars forever.